Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us in another of our series of weekday afternoon webinars. We do these every few weeks on a Tuesday at lunch as a way of learning more about Friendship Place, our programming, issues facing those that we serve, and facing the work that we engage in here. We have Sean Reed, who is our VP of Regional Programs, going to be talking about our regional work today. And let me just mute anyone who's not getting the speaking role. There we go. Just want to make sure we got that covered. Hold, I'm trying to mute the right person. Let's see. There we go. Sean, I think I accidentally muted you. I want to first of all thank everyone who may have come out to the concert on Sunday. It's a really lovely event. We had a good number of folks there. Also want to flag for folks that we are going to do a rooftop happy hour again this year on July the 26th. Please email me if you're interested and we can hold a spot for you. It's at the top of the Graham Hotel. It's a lovely way of saying thank you to our donors and friends. Without further ado, I'm going to toss to Jean-Michel, who then can welcome us, and then we'll toss to Sean. And as you are listening to Sean, please think about questions. This is meant to be interactive and an opportunity for you to ask questions that you may have. And this way, it doesn't have to just be me asking the questions. It gives you an opportunity to engage as well. So you could do that either by dropping questions in the chat, or when the time comes, you can raise your hand and ask questions that way. Jean-Michel, let me toss to you.
Yes, well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this great conversation on the regional programs cluster, which includes a number of terrific programs and very hardworking teams out in the field to serve people and find solutions for people experiencing homelessness in DC Metro, so DC and the 8 counties around us. We have a great leader in the cluster. It's Sean, who's been with us for a long time, started as a case manager and then moved up through the ranks. So he knows Friendship Place very, very well. So I'm looking forward to listening to you, Sean, and to the questions from the audience on this cluster. Thank you so much.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. As has been shared, my name is Sean Reed, and I serve as the Vice President for Regional Programs here at Friendship Place. So regional programs is a very diverse portfolio of solution-driven programs here at Friendship Place that serves on the DC metropolitan level. So these programs in some form have some connection to DC, Northern Virginia, and then also in what's called metropolitan Maryland, which are the communities of Prince George's, Montgomery, and Frederick counties in Maryland. And kind of looking at it historically, Friendship Place began serving at the regional level in 2012 with the launch of our Veterans First Division under the funding of the Supportive Services for Veterans Families. That really brought us to the regional level in terms of a formalized program, but we have constantly looked as an organization to find the solutions to the needs of individuals who come to our organization. And so, though not formalized in a program form, Friendship Place has constantly looked at how we are good neighbors, good partners to those who are experiencing homelessness or housing instability all across the region. And that has been, we've been able to make some significant impact in that through the generosity of supporters to the organization that has allowed us to create some very unique solution-driven services and funding streams to help address housing instability with things like rental assistance, access to new housing opportunities, and even low-cost services that will help households maintain their housing. For example, things such as an $800 car repair to keep a household getting to and from work, where they're then able to pay for rent, which may be $2,500 a month. By that small investment, we're able to help in the sustainability of stable housing for a household. And so Friendship Place has been a regional player informally and formally and for many, many years as serving the DC metropolitan area. And so as part of just sharing this afternoon, I'll share a little bit about our programs, but I want to start with just kind of identifying where is the region at in terms of the presence of homelessness in our region. And so we are very fortunate to have just received the recent data reports from the point in time count, which is an annual census that's performed generally in the month of January and the last Wednesday. And this is not just locally, but this is across the entire country, where the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development tasked the various communities across the United States to do an overnight census to understand what is the presence of homelessness within the communities. And so here in the DC metropolitan region, this was done during the last week of January. And the report shared that in 2023, at the point in time, there were 8,944 unique individuals experiencing homelessness across the DC metropolitan region. Unfortunately, that was an increase from the prior year by about 1,300 individuals. There was an increase on the regional level of experiencing homelessness. And there are some other aspects that were really key in this report, and I would encourage you to go and read this report that is brought collectively, but then you can also see each community will comment about what they've seen. And this is through the Metropolitan Washington Committee on Governments, or MWCOG. If you type that into Google or whatever web browser you use, and you put in point in time, that will bring you the latest report that you can read about the impact and the status of homelessness in our region. There have been a lot of progress amidst all of the challenges of COVID, and there's been increases and decreases in homelessness across the various communities. But it's exciting to see that several communities have made a significant impact in the reduction of chronic homelessness over the last 5 years. The city of Alexandria has decreased chronic homelessness by 87% over the last 5 years. Arlington County has reduced it by 76%. And we've also see this in various other communities where there's been a mix of increases and also reductions of chronic homelessness. Veteran homelessness across the entire region has been reduced by more than 21%. We've also seen a decrease in family homelessness across the region by 25%, with the largest decrease here happening in the District of Columbia through the short-term family housing programs. Homelessness among families has decreased by 56% over the last 5 years. And we have been very fortunate to be part of that movement here in the district through our work at the Brooks. One aspect that is concerning that we have seen regionally is the increase in youth homelessness. Regionally, this has increased by 46% over the last 5 years. And what we do know is that addressing homelessness among youth and young adults is vitally important, because the sooner that you can end homelessness or interrupt those cycles of homelessness, we have a way of being able to reduce the potential for ongoing or repeated occurrences of homelessness later in life. We also want to work on those aspects of reducing that turning into chronic homelessness, which is something that has been unfortunately on the rise across the United States. And so Friendship Place has a number of different programs that look to address so many of these different population groups and are really found in our regional programming. To start, I'll just say the Welcome Center, which we have operated since 1993, we're celebrating 30 years of the Welcome Center this year. And the Welcome Center really serves as kind of a hub of a variety of different solution-driven services. We operate a daytime drop-in center 3 days out of the week, where individuals who are experiencing homelessness, who are experiencing unstable housing, have the opportunity to come to the drop-in center to engage with our staff on finding solutions. A lot of the key services we do offer at our drop-in center are completing of the DC's housing assessment to connect them to housing opportunities, whether it's through the rapid rehousing programs or permanent supportive housing. We provide street outreach services to adults in Upper Northwest in Ward 3, our historical area of service, engaging with individuals who are both experiencing sheltered and unsheltered homelessness. And our team does a lot of work to engage with individuals who are in, camping or they're experiencing homelessness outdoors in the parks and alleyways across our territory that we serve. We also have a number of different programs that serve youth and young adults. We do run on a contract with the Department of Human Services here in DC to provide outreach services to youth under the age of 25 across all 8 of the district wards. And so our team of 4 will go out in the afternoons and evenings and find young people who are experiencing homelessness, who are doubled up, or may also be in a runaway situation, and work to connect them to very vital youth services that are available through other partners in the district. And then we also have a privately funded program that provides supportive services and case management to young adults under the age of 30. This is our Before 30 program that we have been running for about 10 years. And it's very targeted and focusing on what the needs are, or what the desires are for our young people who are experiencing homelessness and unstable housing, of what they want to accomplish. And so this program really looks at items such as housing, education, employment, health-related services as well. We also have a lot of individuals served through this program who identify as LGBTQ. And so we really take that focus as well in being sure that we are connecting those individuals to the services that are found across the city and across the region. Before 30 is one of our regional services that we do offer through the Welcome Center. We also do have individuals who come from Maryland and Virginia as well that do walk through our doors at the drop-in center. But Before 30 is a program that is available to individuals that are residing in Fairfax, City of Alexandria, Arlington County, Prince George's, and Montgomery counties. And so we do receive referrals and connection points from youth and young adults in those communities to support and serve. The Welcome Center division as a whole serves close to about 800 to 900 people per year across all the various program services. We do also run some permanent supportive housing through funding through HUD that serves about 42 households per year. And so the team really is dynamic, it's very diverse, and we're constantly looking at not just what's happening in DC and what's happening in our Tenley neighborhood, but we have to have that understanding of what's happening on a regional level, because what influences what's happening in Prince George's County, we need to know about. We need to know about those resources. And so the team is also heavily dedicated to understanding what is available across the region, that then we can be connectors to those services so that we can help people navigate that, that pathway to getting the services and resources that they need. At Friendship Place, I always talk about how we're not going to hand over just a slip of paper or a phone number or an email. We're going to be the ones to be alongside individuals to help make those connections, to ensure that that process is as smooth as possible, and to help navigate any barriers that may present in that process. And so that's one thing that I think that really sets us apart as an organization, is taking the extra step, the extra time, because what it helps us understand too is that a good referral? Is that a good process? Because we don't want to keep going to that resource if it's going to cause multiple barriers for people on an ongoing basis, because that can be traumatizing or re-traumatizing for individuals seeking those services. And we don't want to be placing people in those situations. And so we really do an exceptional job of finding out what are the barriers, but then also what are the solutions that are out there across the community. It also allows us to build very strong collaborative relationships, because another provider may have a solution that we have for a client who's in our programs one day, and we might in turn have the solution for an individual who is in their program services on another day. And so it helps us to work on a regional level of ending homelessness, rather than just looking at it as very isolated communities. Our veteran services, like I had shared, that we launched in 2012, is supported by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and it's under the program that's called the Supportive Services for Veteran Families, or SSVF. This is a program that uses temporary financial assistance through a rapid rehousing model to serve veterans and veteran families across the DC metropolitan region. So 9 communities, our team is working and connecting with veterans who are experiencing homelessness or who are at risk of homelessness, in making that movement to ensure that we can say as a country, no veteran is left behind in terms of housing. And the Department of Veterans Affairs, under the multiple leadership, multiple secretaries of the VA over the last 3 presidential administrations, has been very steadfast in making sure that we as a country will move closer and closer to hitting that target. Last year, there was a throwdown of how do we house 37,000 veterans in 2022? And through the support of the VA as a country, we exceeded that mark. And at Friendship Place, we played a huge role in serving more than 500 households last year alone in 2022. And already so far this year, we've already served more than 400 households through our SSVF program. And so Veterans First also, they will use this, they use the housing first approach, so removing barriers to housing, meeting people where they're at, and really providing a lot of comprehensive wraparound services. It's really important. So our veterans have the opportunity to engage with employment services through an employment specialist in the program. They have the opportunity to engage with a healthcare navigator if they are having some challenges or needing to get connected to VA benefits or to other health-related services in their communities. We have a healthcare navigator that provides that support and guidance. We also have a legal and benefits staff attorney that is on our team to help our veterans navigate the claims process for service connection disability or applying for Social Security due to disability that they may have. And so these comprehensive services are extremely vital that to wrap around so that households, when they move into housing, are able to be sustainable in housing with these supports. And so our team, 41 staff, serve on our veteran services team across the region, that they are working tirelessly to make sure that we can house our veterans as quickly as possible. Generally within 90 days or less is the goal, that we are housing veterans into housing opportunities across the region that are also going to be supportive to them. And so we provide the information, we provide those landlord engagements, and then ultimately we look at, and working with our veteran, where is it that you feel that you will be most successful and most stable in residing, and also looking for the affordable housing at the same time. Our team at Veterans First also has been selected on multiple occasions to pilot new initiatives through the VA. And the most recent one has been a program called Shallow Subsidy. And Shallow Subsidy is not just financial assistance and not just a housing voucher or ongoing voucher subsidy. It looks at how do we provide kind of a mid-range financial assistance or a shallow subsidy that an individual household could receive up to 2 years. And so rather than a permanent supportive housing or voucher-based program that would look at 30% of a household's income would be what the individual would contribute towards their rent, this is looking at what is 50% of the rent that would be covered by the program. The other 50% would be covered by the veteran to ensure stable housing. And then we're providing those case management services wraparound. And what's really exciting about these opportunities is that what we have seen piloted through the Department of Veterans Affairs and ultimately through the SSVF program provides vital data that then is applied across other programs into the general homelessness population in future years to make an impact. So we get to be part of the incubators and facilitators of these new models within the country, and to see then how it can be applied, not just for veterans, but for all household types that are experiencing homelessness. And so we've been very, very fortunate to be selected as one of the pilot organizations. And so we also had a role working regionally with other SSVF providers when the VA then tapped this as a general practice for all SSVF organizations, that we had the opportunity to be part of the technical assistance support to our partnering organizations, both regionally as well as kind of an extended side as well. So up and down a bit of the East Coast, so we were able to provide a lot of support as well. The other great thing that really works with our veteran services is that we work very closely with some of our national partners, organizations like Community Solutions, on working to reach functional zero, which is to ensure that there are zero individuals that would be experiencing homelessness, but that if someone were to enter homelessness, that we have the system built in place that we can end homelessness very, very quickly for that household. And so we've been very fortunate to be able to work with those partners over the last 5 to 10 years. We've had that opportunity working closely with them. The Brooks, our short-term family housing program, which is based here in DC. So this is one of the programs in our regional program portfolio that is solely based in DC. Is a short-term family housing program that works to assist district families who are experiencing homelessness with a rapid re-entry to permanent housing, and working with our PSH and rapid rehousing program serving families in DC. So the Brooks is located in Upper Northwest in Ward 3 in the Cathedral Heights area. And so this team provides services to up to 50 families at a time at our location, in providing wraparound services. We provide meals, we provide case management services, housing navigation. The full focus is on how do we quickly move families out of homelessness and into stable housing that is sustainable. And so the program really focuses on providing that very person-centric approach, helping the families locate housing that will fit their needs and support their family. And we've had households that have been as large as 7 or 8, and also households as small as 2 that have come through the Brooks. And it's about finding the right fit of housing for those households. Last year, we served about 100 households at the Brooks in fiscal year 2022. So far this year, we've already served 72 families. And that number is as of the end of March, and we have been welcoming a tremendous number of families over the last several months. We've also been exiting 10 to 12 families per month to stable housing at the Brooks. And so the Brooks is just very unique. It's not shelter, it's short-term family transitional in a lot of ways. And for us at Friendship Place, it's about how do we make the experience supportive, but also encouraging to not stay within the Brooks. It's like you make it comfortable, but not too comfortable. You want to be able to help people get that vision of what the next step is. And so one of those things too is like, how do you engage kids? And this is what I love about the Brooks, is that the offerings that our team provides there, just over the last several months, they've been able to bring in opportunities where we have a weekly homework club that is there to engage with children and residents with homework support. We had volunteers offered to do a baseball clinic. So some of our kids could get out of the building, get onto a baseball field and learn some of the skills for playing baseball. And as a coach, I love that idea and was ready to jump out there too. I was a little late in joining with it. We've had Lego nights, and it's just great to be able to get Lego together. And it's not just a kid activity. That is something that parents can also join in with and build together. It's an opportunity for kids and parents to connect outside of that focus on, okay, we got to get out of this situation and moving on. You got to give those opportunities to breathe whenever you're in those situations, and experiencing homelessness and crisis gives that opportunity to kind of reconnect as a family, which is vitally important going through hardship together. And so our team also looks at all these other opportunities. There'll be other opportunities that come in the future for cookouts and snow cones and all sorts of things like that, or being able to hand books to kids is so vitally important as well. And so having a library on site and a computer lab is also very supportive to residents at the Brooks. It just gives those opportunities to engage and to kind of look at what are the next steps. Aim Hire is our workforce development department, and Aim Hire serves all across DC metro region through a number of different programming or different kind of services within. And Aim Hire uses what we call a jobs first approach. And so when an individual is looking for services and they say, I need a job, when we are looking at that individual, we're looking at what are the strengths that this person possesses, what are those experiences that can be turned into a job opportunity, and how quickly can we get this person into a job? Because we assume employability, that everyone has some skill set and experience that we know that there is a employer out there that could absolutely use the skills that this individual has. And that's what the team does. They work with individuals. They do assessments to understand, okay, what is the proficiency with interviewing skills? Does the resume need to be worked on? Do they need to have access to particular attire for interviews or to be on the job? And the team looks at all of those different aspects to help get people in their jobs within 90 days of program entry. And we have some very specialized program services within AIM Hire. So we have one program that is serving families who are experiencing homelessness, funded through the Bezos Day One Fund. And that aspect of AIM Hire is engaging with families who are in shelters, not just in DC, but across the region, and working to connect those families to the resources needed to be able to gain employment and to help support the income needs of the family as they then are progressing towards housing. We have another program that is funded through the U.S. Department of Labor, known as the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program, or HVRP. And this program is working with veterans who are experiencing homelessness or at risk as well. And so we do a lot of partnership with our Veterans First team, funded through SSVF, to help engage and to support veterans into employment opportunities, as well as also training and kind of skill development opportunities as well. As another aspect of that program that we are able to invest in. And so we do work very closely with community-based partners through the job centers across the entire service area in Maryland, Virginia, and the district to connect veterans to those opportunities. We also do a lot of services through a privately funded initiative. And so where individuals, if they are not a veteran and they're not a family and they still need a job, we have the ability to serve. There's if you are looking for that work opportunity, AIM Hire provides these orientation sessions on Wednesday afternoons that shares about what Jobs First is, what people can expect from our organization and the services that we provide, and help them in that process to begin the connection to one of our employment specialists and ultimately to be connected to an employment opportunity. The other thing that I love about our AIM Hire program is the diversity of engagement with employer partners across the region. We have built some very strong relationships with several employers that they will come to us when they have openings and say, who do you have for us? And so we have that opportunity to engage frequently. And instead of us just sending people to job fairs, which we do share that information because that's a great opportunity for people to network and to find possibilities, we like to bring the employers in-house. And actually on Thursday this week, we are hosting a mega hiring event with multiple employers at our U Street location in order to support those opportunities for our participants to engage with employers on site at a place that they know. And oftentimes we have offers by the end of those events for many of our participants that then we go through that process to support and support them as they begin that new employment opportunity. One of the things that I love that we do as well is that we have built out in our programming the opportunity to support individuals with transportation assistance within those first 2 to 4 weeks of employment, because until you start getting that first paycheck or you start to see that income coming in, that's going to be a huge barrier if you don't have any income. And so this is one way that we can support individuals with that $20, $30 per week to be able to use Metro or whatever mode of transportation is necessary to get to and from the job site over those first few 1 or 2 paychecks. It's been an incredible opportunity that also promotes a lot of job retention and job satisfaction during that transition phase. And so these programs as well, we follow through with people over the course of 12 months to see if they're still in that job or if they move to another job, because sometimes they might go to the job and work there for 6 months that they work with us, and it levels them up to another opportunity that is much greater than the one that they were initially placed into. And so we follow along with our participants as well. Finally, the last regional program service that we do offer is funded through our Bezos Day One Fund. So Friendship Place received one of the awards from the Bezos Day One Fund back in 2020 for $2.5 million to address needs presented within the community of families experiencing homelessness. And one of the things that we focused on was removing barriers to housing and access to housing. And this is something that we learned as well on a regional level and through the generosity of supporters over the last 10 years, is that sometimes the things that you need to access housing are very, very simple. There are things like renter's insurance. They are things like holding fees and amenity fees, or sometimes a security deposit is not enough in some situations, or like a program may not be able to do the security deposit, so they have to go to outside sources to be able to help a household move into housing. And these are things that we identified as vitally important. And so as part of the Bezos Day One Fund, Emily Carpenter, who is our family fund manager, helps and coordinates with so many different providers serving families experiencing homelessness across the region as a resource that helps to move families out of homelessness and into housing quickly. And since we started that fund back in, I think we kind of launched doing these referral services in early 2021, we've served more than 1,000 people through this fund, 305 families, and out of all of those referrals, the housing assistance to stable housing is around 95%. And so what we see is that it doesn't often take a whole lot of money in certain situations to end homelessness. It's how you leverage the resource. And that is something that I think we have done really well as an organization for many, many years, is finding the right fit at the right time to be able to make that impact in ending homelessness or preventing homelessness in some situations as well. And so the regional programs that we've had the opportunity to kind of invest in so many different areas, and like I said at the very top, like we always need to know what is happening with our neighbors, what is happening in Virginia, what is happening in Maryland. And so we also keep very close track with what is happening with other providers, but also what happens in the legislation in these communities as well. And so whatever's happening in Annapolis and in Richmond, we know is going to impact our region. And it's why we've worked really hard to be able to position ourselves with offices and service locations, one in the city of Alexandria in North Old Town, but then also in Greenbelt, Maryland. So we are actually in our regional communities with access points to provide services. And I think I'll stop there and open up to questions. I know I just talked for like 30 minutes straight, but it has been an honor to be working with the various program staff and leaders of our regional programs for the last several years in this role. And we're excited to see how do we continue to contribute towards reducing and ending homelessness across the metropolitan region. I mean, like I said, 8,944 was what was counted this past January with the point in time, but we also know that there are people that are exiting homelessness and there are others that are entering homelessness pretty much on a daily basis. And it's how do we keep driving that number down to show what the impact is. And I think we're also seeing what now this kind of post-COVID, like we're merging out of the pandemic and we're going to see really what are the things that are going to hit here that were resources that are no longer there, and how do we respond as an organization to meet those needs.
Well, thank you, Sean. That was very robust. And yeah, I was going to say, you probably need a drink of water after talking all that, and I don't know when you sleep because you've got so much on your plate and in your portfolio. So, thank you for all you do. I do have some questions that I can, guide us through, follow up, but don't let this just be me. Please put questions in the chat. Garrett's raised his hand. You beat me to it. So Garrett, please, you go right ahead, but you're muted.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Thank you, Sean. That was very comprehensive, and I really appreciate, it's amazing every time on how many more programs to learn about, even though I was on the board for some years. It seems even the last couple of years, things have expanded. Earlier in your discussion, you mentioned the increase in youth homelessness. And I was wondering, does DC have a way of identifying which of those youth, for lack of a better term, are homegrown versus those that are coming in to the city from outside? Because I know that's a big, DC is kind of a big hub, I've learned, for homelessness. And also, once you determine the youth, like whoever you're working with, if they may be LGBTQ, might be different ages, how do you determine which agency or what resource to gear them towards? Because I know that's not our bread and butter.
Yeah. So in terms of like identifying like who's a district resident that's a youth, that we have to engage initially is like if they are in within the boundaries of the district, we got to assume that to start, because that's the other thing that we have found is that especially for youth, anyone who's doubled up under the age of 25 is considered, quote, homeless under the youth system. And so what we also see is that there may be individuals who are from Prince George's County or Montgomery County or one of the other jurisdictions, but we're encountering them within DC. And if they're in that space, we're going to do the exploration. And so, but it is really hard. We don't have like an actual like counter that will differentiate between, in that we just kind of have to look at, who's here and now. And then we do explore those things with our youth. Is that, okay, do you have family connections? Do you have a safe space? Because the entries into homelessness amongst young people, there's a lot of diversity in terms of why a young person is experiencing homelessness. In some situations, they've just run away, or they have gone through the emancipation process and they are their own. They don't answer to a parent or a guardian anymore. Foster care age out. We have a lot of young people that are kicked out of their homes because of, sometimes the families aren't able to take care of them any longer, or for LGBTQ, they don't accept someone's gender orientation or identity. So there's so many different avenues that we see a young person engaging with housing instability and homelessness. And for us, when we're doing that approach in our work, we're just looking at how is the individual, like, what is it that they need to kind of come back to a place of stability, safety, and in many ways, wholeness? Like, what are the things that they're not able to engage with because they don't know the system? That is one thing that we keep finding is this person's 18 and they're not affiliated with a family of origin. They don't have Medicaid. They don't have SNAP benefits. They're not connected to these resources that they are eligible for. That's a lot of our process. And sometimes that's when we do find out if they are not a district resident, is in that process. But the other piece too is that a lot of individuals can, the intent for district residency, also people end up kind of becoming district residents as well. And you asked there was a second part to your question and I have forgot it trying to explain the first one.
I think you covered it all. I don't want to monopolize the time, but the last part in particular was the residency part, because you have people coming, kind of the point of my question was basically these kids coming in from out of town, they don't have ID. It's really hard for them to get engaged with the local government support network until they have all that going on. So again, but that's my question.
Yeah, the other part too that you said about what other providers and such. And so, through our outreach team, we're also looking, if someone is out and they're unsheltered, we're calling and we're working to connect with what youth shelters there are available in the district. And if there aren't youth specific shelters or even LGBTQ specific shelters for youth that are available, we're then working with the general shelter service system to ensure that there are accommodations that are able to be made if there are accommodations that are needed. But a lot of the service connection does happen through a coordinated system as well, like we do for adults and veterans. There's a system that meets regularly to connect young people to rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, but also transitional housing programs. So it does take a community here in DC with youth to really work on that. And that is something that we're bridging out with our Before 30 program on the regional level, because youth homelessness looks very different in DC than especially when you start going suburban and more rural. in some of those communities, we know you got to kind of address it as like individual by individual then.
Thank you. We have a question in the chat. Lindsay is interested in data on some of the reasons for youth homelessness. I'm wondering if you might be able to elaborate a little more.
Yeah, data. So I don't have any specific stats that I can pull right now. What I can say is a great partner for that information is the National Network for Youth. Is a great national organization that does a lot of research and data on the experience of youth homelessness. Even our friends at the National Alliance to End Homelessness do a lot of research on this as well. If you are interested in looking for like specifics on community by community, there is some of that is shared in the kind of the collected reporting for the point in time count that does break down the experiences of youth homelessness. For DC, we do a week-long youth count in September, which was built in legislation back in, I think, 2013 or 2014 to do a separate youth count in DC. Data related to that is found through the community partnership for the prevention and ending of homelessness here in the district. They will put out the data tables and the results from that youth count on their website. But it's like I said, it varies quite a bit of what the experiences are person by person. And it only just solidifies the reason why you need to do person-centric services. You can't just cast a net and like you're going to address it as that. There are going to be common themes that you can build things around, but you have to look at each person's individual story and understanding, because when you build it that way, it also people connect to those services then because they see themselves in the solution. And it's always about that collaborative approach that makes the most impact. And personally, I think makes the most success as well.
Thank you. In the chat, we have, so how is it determined what type of support a veteran will receive? How do you differentiate between those who would receive rapid rehousing or those receiving a shallow subsidy, and how do those all work together?
Yeah. So how they all, I would also say we do a lot of collaboration with what is called HUD-VASH, which is the federal program for permanent supportive housing for veterans. So if a veteran comes into our SSVF program, our Veterans First Division, there's an initial assessment that's done to make sure that the veteran does meet the qualifications. So there is an income threshold, there is a housing status question. There's also, we do need to determine veteran status under SSVF. So those are the things like we got to get the discharge paperwork, and also what is the condition of that discharge to determine if they would be eligible for our program or not. What's really great is that regionally, all of the partners in the region have identified that if a veteran does not qualify for U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs veteran status, so that doesn't often include National Guard or reservists unless they have been activated for active duty or some form of presidential order. Every community around us has committed that, veteran definition for them, those become priorities in other programs. So if it's not funded by the VA, a lot of communities are still focused on the veteran status of anyone who has served in any capacity, regardless of discharge, regardless of active duty status in those communities, so we can truly say we've ended veteran homelessness. You can't say that if someone who is dishonorably discharged, still served, is still experiencing homelessness. So it's really been focused to be very inclusive. What the team will do is they will look at what is the status of the veteran, like what are the resources that they have. And so when we talk about traditional rapid rehousing, that is often going to be an individual may not have any income at the start, or they may not have the ability to gather income very early on. And so we're going to need to provide more of the financial assistance in that program or at that start. And so that individual may fit more into that kind of traditional rapid rehousing that is offered through the program, where someone at shallow subsidy, they may have built up, they have some income services, they just need help kind of getting a little bit of a bump there to get into the housing, but then they're going to be fairly sustainable from there with kind of some ongoing case management services. That might be an individual that is best fit for shallow subsidy. So it's something that the team, whenever a veteran comes in, they do this assessment to see. The one nice thing is that if situations change, there are some instances where an individual who maybe have come in under rapid rehousing under the traditional program can be stepped to the shallow subsidy program. Or if something happens at the shallow subsidy, they can come back to the regular renewal program. The other piece too is that, and we understand this, that assessments are assessments. They are not perfect tools, and they're not going to be able to capture everyone's situation. Because when you do assessments that are yes, no, how many times, you don't get the depth of the experience, which could be very impactful for people and can present significant trauma, significant barriers. And so part of the work that we do as well is that we have the ability to make referrals to permanent supportive housing through HUD-VASH. And that's vitally important, that we have the ability to advocate and to work across the various interventions to end homelessness, to be able to support our veterans that come through the program.
Thank you. Martina asks, in addition to monetary donations, although as the chief fundraiser, Martina, I feel I must point out the importance of monetary donations. How can people provide hands-on assistance support? One thing I did do is I dropped in the chat the how can I help link that we have on our website, but Sean, I'll let you answer that question more directly.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I say is always important is like find those key resources that are trusted regarding the experiences of homelessness. So get on the National Alliance to End Homelessness newsletter, get onto the National Coalition for Homeless Veterans, get to the National Coalition, like all of these key organizations that are looking at homelessness, that are doing the data to understand what are the experiences. Because I think the first thing is just understanding what the issue is so vitally important, because there are a lot of pundits out there. There are a lot of opinions that are out there related to the experience of homelessness. And if you follow any of the national journals or any of the national newspapers, homelessness as a topic is rising up more and more on the pages of the Washington Post, the New York Times, all of these different newspapers and periodicals. And I think that is the first thing, but then also just engaging, doing something like this webinar today, tuning in is a huge part of that. And even asking that question, what can I do to help, I think is the first start. The one thing that I always say is that if you ever come across someone who is experiencing homelessness, ask them their name if you feel comfortable, because to me, that really instills and recognizes identity. When someone who's maybe has been passed by like 500 people over the course of the day, depending upon where they're at, one person stopping, asking them the name, how are they doing? What can I do to help? Asking that question directly. But then you do have to be, you have to sit with what that response could be. Someone might ask for money. Someone might ask for food. And ultimately that's your decision to make, because it's focusing on what those basic needs are. If they ask for money and you're okay with giving the person direct money, you also need to be okay to allow them to make the decisions that they're going to make for the use of those funds. And so part of that is also just getting familiar with the experience of homelessness. And there is tension. There are tensions in our communities right now related to the experience of homelessness. And there's a lot of challenges right now I'll be honest, to our field. There are a lot of people within communities and societies that are questioning the way that we are doing things, if it's even working or if it's the right thing to do. I will double down on the housing first approach for sure. Like it does work. It is very human centric, and it's ensuring that we're doing it with the right steps that are in place to support people. But I think that's it. Like understanding what the issues are related to homelessness is vitally important, and to be able to have dialogue, because yes, homelessness is a big root, is the lack of housing that's available. but we also have to understand where are the inflows that are influencing people experiencing homelessness. And there's so many forms of inequity that are taking place, and that's education, opportunity, employment, environmental. There's so many different aspects of inequity that also contribute to homelessness that we have to understand as well. So it is enough that'll make your head spin at times. But the thing is just engaging and going through that that journey of working to understand and to be in that position, I think, is vitally important. I want to stop real quick. I forgot to share this too about the regional programs team, is that I've got some phenomenal directors of these programs that have been with our organization for a very long time. And so our director for the Welcome Center, Maisha Pinkard, has been with our organization for a decade and has served fully in the Welcome Center. And so is often the historian that I go to understand what has been done at the Welcome Center. Jonathan Whitted, who's our director for Veteran Services, has also been with our organization for 10 years. And he served in both our Neighbors First program as well as our Veteran Services. And Emily Carpenter, who is our Family Fund manager, has been with our organization for more than 10 years. And Emily's started with our Veteran Services, led that department for a while, and then has graciously been leading our work on the organization level for the Family Fund. And David Vicente is our director for Aim Higher. He's been with our organization for 4 years, and Lakita Martin, our director for the Brooks, is coming up on 4 years later this year in our organization. So just some folks have been heavily invested in the work we do here at Friendship Place and heavily invested in their teams. It makes my job a lot easier having these dedicated folk doing this work.
Great.
I have a question. And Emily, thank you for being online with us today, and congratulations on 10 years at Friendship Place. Thank you for everything you do for us. Really appreciate it. It's great to have you. Sean, you and I have been working together for over 12 years. You have a knack for staff development and for retention, keeping people around. You recently were a panelist on building and keeping your super team for HUD at the national level with some folks from the US Interagency Council on Homelessness from the West Coast. So what are the ingredients that go into building the teams and keeping people at Friendship Place?
I think a big aspect is the way that we do our services is similar things, trauma-informed care, understanding that we are not immune to the trauma that our participants have experienced. I think that goes a long way in recognizing that, giving people space. And I think one of the other things that we've done really well as an organization is creating space. Over the last several years, it's been vitally important, as there have been a lot of challenges related to racial justice, as well as these last several years of kind of the push to kind of cancel out the LGBTQ experience. And a lot of kind of like, we're fortunate being in DC, where it's very supportive of LGBTQ, but no one is going to be able to be immune to what also is happening around and when there's impact on a community. And I think we've done a really good job of creating that space for our staff to express the impact with that, because if our staff are experiencing it, we know that our participants are also going to be experiencing that. And I think the one of the things that is so vitally important with the teams is that no one is ever alone. Sometimes the most important thing is seeing someone across the table that says, oh, you too, I thought I was the only one. And it gives that opportunity for people to connect and understand on a way that maybe they had zero or connection with that person, or thought they would have any type of connection with another person in the room or across the organization. And I think those are the aspects when you look at humanity, and you're looking at what people are experiencing and giving space to that. One, it's not easy, but the most important things are not the easiest things. And I think that that is when you step into that and you can create that space and you can empower other people to do that, not just at the top, but like in various ways, even as peers and colleagues to give that space, that's where you can really create some very strong teams and have a lot of success.
Thank
Very
you.
cool. Thank you. Yeah. Well, we are coming up on time here. So Sean and Jean-Michel, I want to know if you have any last comments you'd like to make. And then I'll just reiterate. And well, why don't I start? I'll reiterate that thank you everyone for being here. I'll let Sean and Jean-Michel close out here, but just as a reminder, again, we're going to do a rooftop happy hour. Thank you to our supporters on July the 26th in the evening. We'll have an Eventbrite up. It's not up yet, but email me if you'd like, and we can, I'll sign you up when we do get the Eventbrite up. But Sean, closing comments from you.
Stay curious, because this is ever changing. I mean, that's a thing. I think that as long as we keep kind of looking to understand the experiences of others, that ultimately helps us find the solutions, because the solutions tend to be with the individuals themselves that are experiencing crisis. It's just how do you kind of work through that? And I think as long as we keep curious about what the challenges are related to homelessness, and we're willing to still kind of and we're willing to lean into that, that's what's going to help us get there to the end on the regional level. And just say thank you to everyone for your support of the organization.
Well, thank you. Jean-Michel, would you like to close for us?
Yes, well, thank you so much, Sean, for this presentation and for your leadership in the cluster and at Friendship Place, and really in the field of homeless services, because now you speak for us at different conferences, and the field is ever changing, because homelessness is an ever changing phenomenon. And I'm so proud of the fact that at Friendship Place, we'll really keep up with the trends, and we adapt our programming as we go along, by engaging the most important people, also having people with life expertise at the table. I also want to thank all the team members who have been online with us today, and thanks for everything you do every day out there to help our people rebuild when they come to us. Thank you so much to all the audience also, and to all the donors. As we always say, we could never do this without you. So we will look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Be well.
Take care, everyone. Have a great afternoon. We'll stop recording in 3, 2, 1.